If you clicked on this video, chances are I don't even need to explain what Five Nights at Freddy's is. For some of you, this game may have been the gateway into horror. Regardless of how you've ended up here or why this series is so special to you, we can all agree that there are a lot of installments in this franchise. Now, in my time, I have spoken to and observed many people who love this game series, and I can confidently say that depending on which one is your favorite, it can say quite a bit about who you are as a fan. Now, exactly what info could it give off about you? If you'd like to find out, stay tuned to see what your favorite FNAF game says about you. Before we begin, there's a little disclaimer I want to give everybody. Most of what I am saying today are just harmless stereotypes. There can and always will be exceptions to everything. So if one of your favorite games gives you a somewhat negative stereotype or one that you don't really like, keep in mind that it does not and will not apply to every single individual. And the only reason I state it is because it is what I have seen and encountered in my life. So if you're going to get pissed at anybody, be pissed at the people making the stereotype shitty, if it even is. But don't worry, these aren't that bad. Alright, now we can begin. The first game being your favorite tells me one of two things. You are either an old fan of this series, or a newer fan who gets their opinions from other people. The type of person to change their viewpoint on certain things due to what other people say. Let me put it this way. If you played a choose-your-own-adventure game and were faced with a difficult decision, you would go online and look up what the majority of people did and then pick that option. You know who you are. To be fair to you all, it is probably one of, if not the safest option to pick as your favorite FNAF game. But for those who are old fans of the series or genuinely find this installment as your personal favorite, you guys believe that recent installments of FNAF have lost their touch, almost as if the ominous and looming dread of the earlier installments has been lost to time. But you don't bitch or complain about this. In your mind, you do not hate the newer games. Since they are still considered Five Nights at Freddy's installments, you feel hesitant to dislike them, most likely because this series means a good bit to you, especially if you are an older fan. You are glad the series is continuing, but you still wish the newer installments were creepier. You reminisce about the past. Probably way too much. You have an issue with comparing things from today to things back then. A feeling of unfamiliarity strikes you each time you analyze these changes. The reality is that things aren't how they used to be, and this change can be good or bad in many different circumstances. The fact that you are still a fan of this series shows that you've got dedication, and that is something that I can respect. Look, I get it. The withered animatronics look cool. You can stop talking about them now. In all seriousness, you guys are almost identical to the FNAF 1 fans, except you were a bit more involved in the fan base back in the day. Good example of this would be if someone asked you who this guy was, you would not say William Afton or Purple Guy, you would say Vincent. Dude, hearing that name makes my bones itch. Since you were or are a bit more active in the fan side of things, it is no surprise that you are a hardcore advocate for fan games. Anything fan created you tend to love just as much, if not more, than the mainline games. But besides that, there is not too much I've noticed differently about you compared to the FNAF 1 fans. These people will oversell how scary FNAF is like no tomorrow. They probably started complaining the minute they saw that the FNAF movie was rated PG-13 and not rated R. More so when they watched the film and weren't even disturbed or startled. They wanted the movie to be like one of those analog horror videos. They do tend to enjoy many other forms of cryptic stuff. Creepypastas, true crimes, horror games in general, outside of Five Nights at Freddy's, you name it. Without a doubt, Springtrap is their favorite animatronic, and they believe William Afton is an S-tier antagonist, which usually means they are not a fan of the Mimic at all. They tend to go on tangents about how underrated FNAF 3 is and how the camera mechanics of the FNAF games are iconic. All of this being said, if you meet one of these people who isn't overly edgy, they can be pretty enjoyable to talk with. Well, of course that is if you are a fan of horror, because that is about 95% of this person's conversational interests. If you ranked every FNAF game from worst to best, you would rank them based on how scary you thought each of them were, rather than how objectively good each installment's gameplay was. Similarly to the FNAF 1 fans you find yourself missing back when FNAF had a darker theme to it. And similarly to the FNAF 3 fans, you seem to overrate how ominous and scary the earlier installments were. Something else you overhype is the designs of the nightmare animatronics, not accepting any critical points from anyone. The fourth installment, in your mind, was the scariest point of the FNAF series. Following this, you also love FNAF media that is intended to be horrifying. Stuff like analog horrors, animations, or fan games that are designed to give you a rush of adrenaline. With those forms of media being your interests, you're not a huge fan of the recent official games or movies, and might even despise them. You do tend to publicly complain about how the newer installments seem more kid-friendly, which will lead people to label you as edgy, which can also apply to you just as much as it does to the FNAF 3 fans. But from what I've seen, it's not more so that you're edgy, you just yearn for being scared. You're a thrill seeker, and unfortunately, some of the newer installments just don't give you that rush. You play horror games to get scared, that's why they exist. And when you go to play one and it doesn't happen to you, it can leave you very disappointed. With this kind of experience, you may come off as a dick whenever you speak out in a critical format, but really, you just want things to live up to your expectations. You don't really enjoy horror games, or perhaps you're too scared of them. You see, you have found yourself in an interesting position where you call yourself a FNAF fan, but you've only played FNAF World, the Pizzeria section of Pizzeria Simulator, and Five Nights at Freddy's. With that in mind, how are you even a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's when horror is one of the main attractions? Well, to put it simply, you love the characters' designs more than anything else. More so, you like the creative visual aspect of the earlier FNAF games. Instead of being horrified or startled, you'd rather have a sense of fun or enjoyment when playing a game. Even though FNAF World is your favorite Five Nights at Freddy's game, your all-time favorite game, excluding FNAF, will most likely be something you have sunk hundreds, maybe thousands of hours into. Regarding the community of FNAF, you don't care that much about arguments, debates, or discussions. You just love the characters and the fun parts of the games. You're super nice to talk to, never really aggressive, and are just super passionate about the characters in this series. You live for the sci-fi elements of FNAF. It is one of the main attractions that you love in the series. You've probably sat there in awe looking at Scott Cawthon's previous work, the visual designs and the sci-fi aspects of it all. You care much more about the story of FNAF rather than the aspects of gameplay. You may have read the Silver Eyes trilogy and most likely the graphic novels, but you are not super into the lore, so you haven't touched the Fazbear Frights or Tales from the Pizzaplex books. Alongside this, you don't really care what other people think about you. Not in the sense of being a pushover or that of someone who debates, but more so in the sense of who cares? You enjoy what you want to enjoy. Others around you may have critiqued your favorite game, but you don't care. You don't let critics tell you what is good or bad. You let yourself tell you the answer. All of your opinions are formed by your own experience. Although you don't seek out the gameplay too much, you are a huge fan of the unique and different nights in Sister Location. This also might mean that you are a good fan of Help Wanted. The animatronics having voices and unique personalities is also a concept that you enjoy greatly. All things considered, you guys get way too much flack. You're not all that bad.
In case you did not know, Wazerbyte now has Patreon and YouTube memberships. If you're feeling generous, you can go and show your support with a small monthly fee of $5. That's 16 cents a day. Almost free. We've even got some tiers that are beneath $5. Wazer spends much of his insufficient time making these videos, so your donations will go a long way. Don't worry, your donations will not go unrewarded. There are a few benefits you gain for being so charitable. If you like going the extra mile, head over there, look at the benefits, and feel free to donate. Thank you for your support.
You really care about the story of these games. You could probably spend a whole day talking someone's ear off about the early story of Five Nights at Freddy's. But there is a catch. You hate going past Pizzeria Simulator in terms of the narrative. To this day, you wish that this game's story ended here. You believe this ending was perfection and that Five Nights at Freddy's was completely fucked the moment they continued the story. I have it in good faith that you don't even care what happens after this game. In your mind, the story of this game ended here, and there is very little to change your stance on this. You simply can't, and most likely will never, accept that this game's story is now in a new era. You know, now that I look at it, you guys are just an amalgamation of all the stereotypes I've mentioned beforehand. You share a lot of similarities to everything I've already pointed out. Like the FNAF World fans, you enjoy the fun aspect of these games, but instead of just not being big on horror, you enjoy a perfect blend of the both. Fun and horror. You can't really have too much or too little of either. And then similarly to the FNAF 4, 3, 2, and 1 fans, you don't really like how the games are portrayed nowadays. There's not much else to say about you. You are a big mishmash of all the previous ones I've mentioned. This guy is terrifying. Sorry, it's just, you are shockingly good at all of the FNAF games. When you play the FNAF games, it is a rare occurrence whenever you die or fail a night. You don't lose often, and whenever you do, it must have been either a major fuck up or on purpose. You love a challenge, and you beat most challenges that you apply yourself to. If you are not already a content creator, then it is without a doubt one of your dream jobs. You don't really care about the horror aspect of Five Nights at Freddy's. You just care about if the game is challenging and fun, hence why this one is your favorite. Now, you might be wondering why I have put Help Wanted 1 and 2 in the same category. It is simply because both of these people are damn near identical. Now, what do they share in common? Well, from what I've seen, you guys own a ton of Five Nights at Freddy's merchandise. I'm not sure what the correlation is. Maybe it's because they can't afford a VR headset. I don't know. But one thing is for certain, either you or someone in your family is fucking loaded with cash. I will say though, one thing sets these two apart. Help Wanted 1 and Help Wanted 2. If Help Wanted 1 is your favorite, it is not uncommon that you only own merch of the earlier games. If Help Wanted 2 is your favorite, then it's a free-for-all. You just get merch from any installment, which, I mean, I've gotta respect it. FNAF AR. Really? I have never met you before. No, seriously. I have never, in my life, have heard someone step up and say that Five Nights at Freddy's AR is their favorite FNAF game of all time. Now, I might understand if you were to say that FNAF AR is one of the games that you like, but to say that it's your favorite? It's just very unknown to me. I'm under the assumption that you either picked this one as your favorite to be different, or it's because it's one of the only Five Nights at Freddy's games that you could afford, because it's a free mobile game. I don't know what to say about you guys. Considering that FNAF AR is now shut down and no longer available, the number of people who love this game is probably near extinction. Also, since we're here, if your favorite game is any of the Freddy in Space games or Fury's Rage, I assume you also fall underneath the category of not existing, kind of. If you are out there somewhere, let me know, and feel free to explain why you think these games are your favorite. I am very intrigued to know because I don't have enough info on you guys to give you a stereotype, so I have no clue. Security breach. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm about to blindside the hell out of you with this one. But listen here, okay? Let me speak. Regardless of the unneeded surplus of hate it receives, you still love Security Breach because it is what you enjoy about modern Five Nights at Freddy's. Beautiful environments, voice acting, the animatronics all having distinct personalities, and free roam. You do not enjoy games that have a slow pace. Having Security Breach as your all-time favorite says to me, you love games where you can go wherever you want, whenever you want. Free roam games are your go-to, and putting that in contrast against the previous installments, I can understand why you'd call Security Breach your favorite in regards to a fun factor. You more than likely want to be or are an artist of some capacity. In fact, you're drawing right now. Five Nights at Freddy's to you might have been a passing interest your entire life, but this was the one game that really pulled you back in. You, again, are probably one of those people who care more about the characters than you do about the horror or aspects of gameplay. I know I sound like I'm repeating myself a lot, but this is just what I've noticed, man. It's a very reoccurring theme. But yeah, you guys are either like super nice or like actually Satan. It's one or the other, alright? There's no in between for some ungodbeknownst reason. Unfortunately, you guys do have this duality that's very unpredictable. So you guys are a bit of a wild card. You are an edgier version of the Security Breach fan. Nah, I'm just joking. You liked the concept of Security Breach, but thought it wasn't scary enough, so you settled with this. But the fact that there are supernatural events that occur in the Five Nights at Freddy series piques your interest. The sci-fi element is also something that you adore. With that being said, you do still tend to clash a little bit in comparison to fans of the third installment. You believe the Mimic is a perfect new villain, and is a needed change in modern FNAF. From what I've seen though, you don't argue about this too much. You keep it to yourself, and if you see someone else say that the Mimic sucks, you just know that deep down, they still really like William Afton as the antagonist. And even then, you still respect that. You understand that Afton in the beginning was a great antagonist, but the Mimic's existence has begun a new era of this series. A new era that you will surely enjoy. Oh yeah, this guy's a lore master. It is staggering how much these people know about Five Nights at Freddy's. Every game, every book, all the films, all the little details, they know everything. If you ask them a rogue question about the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, they will answer you immediately. You have probably spent a long portion of your life hyper-fixated on the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, whether it be the games, the movies, or the books. So you know everything there is to know. So what's next? Theories. And I hate to break it to you, for every good theory that you create, you've made 5 horrible ones. Now, I'm not saying I'm good at it, it's just difficult to make sense of the nonsensical, which is the FNAF lore. You're very good at taking in info and displaying it to others, but coming up with your own story speculations is where your flaws start to really show. If you were a content creator, you'd probably title your video something like, "I solved the insert obscure FNAF lore detail," when in reality, you didn't solve anything. But there are times where you make a speculation and it actually starts to make a little bit of sense. Now, this is oftentimes rare, mainly because you try to find an answer as quickly as you possibly can. Now, despite all of your hardcore dedication and research, people will still call you a nerd. Now, don't get it twisted, you are a nerd. Sorry for the friendly fire. You're just passionate about something that many others in the community just aren't really that focused on. You like to start arguments with people. Listen, okay? Listen to me. If someone asks you what your favorite Five Nights at Freddy's game is, and you look them dead in the eyes, and you say, 5 laps at Freddy's, you must understand you have just begun an unskippable debate, no matter which way you twist it. And you yearn for this. You're not afraid to back down on how you view certain things. You state your opinion and you do not let those around you tell you otherwise. If I had to describe you in any way, imagine a more chaotic version of a FNAF World fan. You like to have fun when you play games, but in your circumstance, having fun can mean shitposting, joking way too much, or just playing enjoyable games. You can come off as sometimes obnoxious. Like if someone asked you who your favorite animatronic was, you would probably say some obscure endo model or Toy Freddy. You do not take things too seriously, but you do draw the line when others try to tell you how to live your life. And that was all the current FNAF games and their corresponding stereotypes. This was an interesting topic to cover, mainly because it doesn't really require research in comparison to just observations. A gentle reminder that what I stated in this video are just harmless stereotypes. So for example, if Five Nights at Freddy's 1 is your favorite, but you share more similarities to, let's say, a fan of Security Breach, then you are an exception. You're different, which is good because it means I'm wrong. You are a bit unpredictable, which has its benefits, I suppose. But then again, you could also very well just be a completely blank slate of a person who just happens to like FNAF. On the contrary, if I manage to label some traits that do apply to you and correspond to your favorite game, be sure to let me know. I know this video is a bit different from what I usually post, which is why you're probably sick of seeing me on screen. I'm not usually on screen this much. But anyways, thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and want to show support to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. If you'd want to go the extra mile when it comes to your support, you can check out my Patreon and YouTube memberships. It would mean the world to me. I want to thank all of you for the support on my recent videos. It's nice reading everyone's comments and seeing different viewpoints on certain subjects. With that being said, feel free to comment down below your thoughts about this video. Was I accurate, dead wrong, or something in between? Have some discussions. Anyways, it's been me, Wazerbite, and I will see all of you in the next video. Hopefully I won't be on screen as much as I was in this one.